Hey, what's up, YouTube? It's Vincent here, and I'm gonna do, that thing that I said I was gonna do, which is basically talk about some records and kind of give them actual reviews instead of just, show them. I wanna, talk about them and, give me time to acquire new stuff. Because if I do little mini reviews of the albums, then it kind of gives me not only time to get back into the swing of doing album reviews, but, I can show just a few at a time and it would be better. So I'm kind of annoyed because I don't know what to call this. Because I already started a series uh, of showing vinyls and it was kind of a dumb title. So I think I'm just going to call this album showing and reviews or album collection and reviews or something like that. I'll think of it. But I have three stuff to show you. I have a cassette tape. I have a 7-inch that I just got 2 days ago actually. And then I have a 12-inch. Now, the only reason I have music playing in the background is because my family is here right now, and they're very loud, and they're not the kind of people who I could just be like, oh, don't, be quiet, because they're not going to be quiet, to be honest. So, I tried to put the music low so that you can't really even, hear it that much. It's just sort of, in the background. Sorry. So, basically, what I'm going to do, and it's the album that I'm listening to right now is actually one of the albums that I'm showing. So I'm going to start with the 7-inch. I'm very happy to have gotten this, because you know how there's certain things that you maybe have heard, let's say on YouTube, that you think you're never going to find in physical format. It's underrated, it's underground, it's not something that is easy to obtain, so you just sort of get the idea out of your head that you'll ever find it. Well, this is definitely one of those things. This is a Dungeon Synth EP, and if you don't know what Dungeon Synth is, you can either A, just look it up, or B, watch my last video where I explain that I make Dungeon Synth music and that I'm on a label and what Dungeon Synth is. And the cool thing about Dungeon Synth, and I know that every genre kind of has albums like this, but there's a lot of Dungeon Synth albums or EPs or demos or whatever that are, I don't know what word you would use, not typical, because that kind of has a negative connotation to it, but exemplar, they're a great example of what the genre is, and there's a few good handful of pieces that definitely give off, this is Dungeon Synth. If someone wanted to know what Dungeon Synth was, I'd be like, here you go, and hand them one of those handful of albums. And so, basically, I'm just going to lock the door real quick so no one barges in, because they'll definitely do that. So, this is one of those records, and I love it, and I was scrolling Facebook on a Dungeon Synth page, and the owner of the Dungeon Synth label, Hollow Myths, which is a really good label, you should check that label out, had this for sale, and I was kind of low on money, and it's kind of pricey for a 7-inch, but to be honest, it is rare, and you really don't find it anywhere, so I was like, nah, I gotta pick it up. This is the Domains, the lighting's kind of shitty in here, but this is the Domains of Spirits by, Gwyn. And Gwyn is basically a Swedish Dungeon Synth artist who both of his, pieces are on YouTube. There's the Vard demo, which came out in '95, it's on YouTube. And then this EP, which is also on YouTube, which is of course how I first listened to it. And this really is the total, I don't know what to call it, I guess a culmination, that's the wrong word, the total, just one of the best examples, I can't talk today, I'm fucking exhausted, of what Dungeon Synth is. It totally brings to mind being in a castle with gray stone walls with a torch, and you look out the window of the castle and the big full moon is shining in. It's just everything about this screams Dungeon Synth, in a way that really just blew my mind when I first heard it. So inside you get some advertisements for the Hollow Myth label, and they do really cool t-shirts and stuff. As you can see, there's like a little, they're really tiny, but it's all the t-shirts and hoodies that they sell, which I'm definitely going to try to pick up some. Okay, so there's that, and then the record looks like this. I don't know if there's going to be a glare. Yeah, there was going to be a glare. So that's the B-side, and the A-side is the same thing. It's just a cool picture of Gwen there. And so this is a, I think, 11-minute EP. It's really, really, really atmospheric and really cool. There's a lot of like wind effects, but not too much to where it gets annoying. If you're a fan of Dungeon Synth, you know that sometimes the artists kind of overdo it, and they'll put like there's this demo that is otherwise totally awesome, and it's by this Greek band called Irvas, but it literally, about 10 minutes of the EP, the demo, it's really short, it's like 20 minutes, there's a wolf howling in the background, and it's like, oh my god, like, what are you doing? Like, it's so irritating, and so it ruins the EP, or demo for me, and it's a shame because it's such a good demo, but it's not, because there's a fucking wolf howling throughout the music. It's just so, it's ridiculous in my opinion. It's really stupid, but this is not like that. It's just light wind effects to like transition from like next, part to next part, and it really, really works really well. So I'm just gonna put that back in. Like I said, atmospheric, dark, haunting sounding. The tones that he picked for this EP are perfect. They're totally medieval sounding, nocturnal sounding, but they're not too lo-fi or too rough or anything like that. It's you can still hear everything that's happening. The notes are easy to discern. There's like choir effects, there's like an orchestral kind of feeling in the second song. It's just a really, really, really strong, total perfect example of what Dungeon Synth is and why I love it so much. So if you can get your hands on this, definitely do try. It's going to be kind of hard, but if you try hard enough, you can. And it's on YouTube. So if it sounds like it's interesting to you, just look up Gwen Domains of Spirits on YouTube. So next is a 7-inch, and this is actually the album that I have playing in the background. And this is a band. They're a Norwegian black metal band, and they're very polarizing. Pretty much everyone agrees that their early stuff is the best, so their first demo, their first EP, and their first LP. And then after that is when the debate starts. A lot of people absolutely hate them and think they're a joke. Other people think that they're not so great, but they're pretty okay. And then other people are really big fans and think they're unique and that they're interesting. And this album is their second album, and it's an album that nobody really talks about, but it's a brilliant album, and it's because it's in that transition period between the really good stuff and the stuff that people are like, kind of like that. You might know who I'm talking about if you're a really big Norwegian black metal fan. If you're an aficionado like I am, you might already know. But this is Ancient with the Canian Chronicle. And this is a masterpiece, in my opinion, of epic sounding, like, melodic black metal is what they call it. Not the band, but it's just what it gets labeled as. To me, it's just black metal with a slight melodic edge to it. I really wouldn't call it its own genre. But this is such... I really wish the lighting was better in here because this cover is really killer. But this album just gets no attention. You see pictures of the band members there. It's too dark in here. I'll make sure the lighting's better in the next video. But nobody talks about this. It gets good reviews, but it's just not, it's considered like, oh yeah, this is the album they started to suck. And it's not true at all. On their first few releases, they had a really, really almost like, diabolical full moon mysticism kind of feeling to it by Immortal, which I love that album, and so that's why I love this band's early material. But they changed a lot, and by the third album they kind of had like this gothic Cradle of Filth kind of sound. But then on their fourth album they picked up, and I actually have that fourth album on cassette, which I'll probably show next time. But this is called The Canian Chronicle, and it's a gatefold. I got this from Hell's Headbanger, so it's a really nice gatefold with really cool pictures of the band, or a picture of the band. This guy right here, Lord Kaifas, he was in Grand Belial's Key, actually, before he went to Ancient, so I'm sure a lot of you guys know them. Lyrics, very well written, cool lyrics. The first 3 songs on this are a concept kind of thing about, it's kind of weird actually, they sort of mix the story of Cain and Abel from the Bible with a vampire role-playing game. I'm not kidding about that. The Vampire Masquerade, and apparently they were really into it, and they just had the really unique original idea of mixing those 2 stories together. So there's side A, there's side B, and it is really interesting because the first 2 songs are about that, so like vampire-esque Cain and Abel story. It brings up Lilith, which I'm pretty sure is extra biblical, but still, it doesn't matter. It brings up, the kind of sin that Abel committed, or excuse me, Cain committed, like the original sin, and getting, cast down by God, and all this stuff, and it's a really, really cool kind of concept. And then, I hate putting this back in, though, because it does one of these. Have you ever had a vinyl that did that? It got all poofy when you try to put it in, and it pisses me off, and I almost regret even taking it out, but I wanted to show you guys the cover. God damn it. This is gonna bother me so much. Fuck it. I'll fuck with it after I'm done. And then this is the other vinyl. It's a double vinyl because it's a really long album. It's an hour long. Side B, and then side B. Oh, excuse me, side C, side D. This is the album where they got a female vocalist, which they pretty much would have for most of their material. But the cool thing is, on the third album, which is the one after this, they kind of started to get a little too much. Like, the female vocals would take up more than the actual fucking, like, metal would. But this album, it's a perfect amount. So instead of just being too much, you get, a nice mix. To the point where most of it is, harsh, gruff, black metal rasps. But, you also get, a nice kind of amount of, there we go. You get a nice amount of, female vocals that actually add to the mysticism and the kind of ancient, no pun intended, but ancient kind of quality that the band has. And that's one of the reasons I really love this band, is in an interview, the guitarist Avizel, who's like the leader of the band, and who would eventually go on to do vocals, said that if he could use one word to describe the band, he would say magic. And that's definitely true. It's about mysticism and magic and ancient times and just this kind of old world feeling, and it's really, 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 really awesome. And it's something that kind of carries on through pretty much all their work, including the early stuff. And it's just killer, really. It's really, really, really good. This album is an hour long, and there's not one song that's bad on it. There's one interlude called Igzu that's kind of stupid, in my opinion, and it doesn't really need to be there, but other than that, it's just great riff after great riff after great catchy, really, really catchy riff. The songs stick in your head, and it's a shame that not as many people really kind of hail this as being a great record. It's really, really, really good. So yeah, it has a great, almost as weird as this sounds, the album almost kind of gives off like a prehistoric vibe to it. So like almost like a dinosaur time vibe to it. I cannot explain why that is because nothing on this album has to do with anything like that. But it just sounds really, really ancient and really old. And I remember first listening to it and being like really sucked into the atmosphere, and I really, really enjoyed it. So if you haven't heard this, or if you've kind of only heard the early ancient stuff, which is amazing, but if you've only heard that stuff and you kind of slagged this off, I definitely would recommend checking this out because it's really, really phenomenal material. So, Lord Typhus has a great voice too, as you can hear. Very unique black metal voice. You know it's him when you hear him. Okay, so last but not least, to kind of break away from the theme of underrated stuff, this is totally well known, one of the most important albums pretty much in metal history. This is an original 1983 pressing. Not going to talk about it long because there's not too much to talk about. This is... I'm very happy to have this on original cassette tape as well because it's the format I would prefer to have it on. It's weird. I'm a weird person in that there's certain albums that I would prefer on one format as opposed to another, but I really don't have a favorite format. I would say my favorite format probably is cassette. There's something about it that I really, really like. I don't know why, but vinyls are great, and I love CDs too. I don't mind getting a CD at all. If I need to get a CD, I'll get it, and it's totally fine. But something about this album, along with some other albums, I really just think it's cool to have on cassette. It's fucking dark in here, but you guys know it. Show No Mercy by Slayer. What is there really to say? This is a pretty shitty inlay card. There's no even lyrics, there's no members of the band, there's not even members of the band in here. What the fuck? That's pretty shitty. But yeah. The way old cassette paper smells. You know that there's a smell to it. Don't lie. I'm not weird. Trust me. You guys know. But no. This is just a total killer album, man. It's, interesting because it kind of has some of that, like, I don't know how to describe it. It has some of that, like, old school, like, British heavy metal kind of feeling to it. It's thrash metal. I consider it thrash metal. But it's not thrash metal in the typical, like, sense of, like, mid-80s thrash or later 80s thrash. It's like that kind of formative years of thrash where things weren't so incredibly fast, but they also weren't slow either, if that makes sense. It was just sort of kind of like, speed metal-ish, if you will. But still more flashy, and it was getting to that, like it was approaching what we know as thrash metal, but it just wasn't all there yet. Punky, fast, satanic, kind of exudes that, that classic heavy metal feeling that the 80s really brought to the table, and that is kind of the genesis of everything else that we listen to as metal fans: death metal, black metal, the more extreme forms of thrash metal. It's pretty much all here. I'd say, and Tom Araya's vocals are killer too. I love his vocals on this record. They have a really cool, almost sort of like a clean sound to them. He has a really nice sounding voice, but of course it's like rough and gruff and kind of, I know that's sort of a contradiction, but if you're a big Slayer fan and you've listened to all the albums, you'll know what I mean by that. It just has a more clean tone to it, probably because of the new wave of British heavy metal influence that it possesses. My favorites on here: Evil Has No Boundaries, The Antichrist. Pretty much the first 4 songs are just perfect. You know, Die by the Sword, Fight Until Death, Black Magic, Tormentor. It's all really, really, really fantastic. And I pretty much don't need to really talk too much about it because you all know what this is. You all are well aware of it, and if you're not, then fucking listen to it. If you're a metal fan and you haven't heard it, then hello, what are you doing? Listen to it. That's Show No Mercy by Slayer. So, just to recap, you guys should all check out Grim Domains of Spirits for some classic dungeon synth. The Canian Chronicle by Ancient for some masterful, underrated, underappreciated Norwegian black metal that's utterly unique and has its very own voicing that I really appreciate about it. You could pick this up, Flagger Records did this, and you could pick it up from Hell's Headbangers on double LP gatefold, so I picked it up. And of course, Show No Mercy by Slayer, which I don't gotta go into too much detail about. So, this is really cool. I'm definitely excited to keep doing this, because it's a good format, I think, for videos, showing off my collection and reviewing the albums. I like that a lot, and I'm definitely going to keep going with it, and keep moving in that direction. So, thanks guys for watching. Give me any feedback. If you have any opinions about these albums that you'd like to give, please do so, and have a great, great day. Thanks. Until next time.